current Daf Masechta Taanis Daf Yomi. We begin on the top line of the Yomid, where we continue the theme of these Dafim, this parak, this Masechta, discussing that of rain, and as it relates to Eretz Yisrael in relation to all the other lands of the world. Ashir corresponds because the Tענית and Daf Hashem is joining us today's Daf. So we're going to discuss in today's Daf the special way Hashem treats Eretz Yisrael, the original source of rain, where it comes from, and the dispute between Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, which we discussed in the previous Daf. So Gemara continues regarding if it's Mayim Yoyim or Mayim Tachtonim, where does the world get its water from? And the next mission to discuss is when do we begin asking for rain in davening, when and how we start fasting. That's the following Mishnah. When and how we start fasting if the rain does not fall by a certain time. Who should fast if the rain doesn't fall? And other laws about fasting, and also regarding learning while traveling, that's mentioned parenthetically. So the key things comes to discuss in today's Daf are base court, it's also mentioned Derech Agav, but regarding an area of 30 sa. Since Alamata, we know that's the request we make for the rain during the winter season, and Yechidim are the individual ones who are very pious, and they take on a greater level of fasting earlier than the rest of the people. So begin the current Daf Yud, top line, term on the Braisa. Eretz Yisrael Nivras Tchilo. Eretz Yisrael was created first. And the rest of the world was created at the end. It says the pasuk in Mishlei. It says Adli Asa Eretz, until he didn't make the land, and then it says V'chutzais, and that which is outside of that. Which Eretz Yisrael was first, and then everything else was outside of that. Additionally, Eretz Yisrael, and this is what relates back to our previous daf regarding the rain. He waters Eretz Yisrael himself, and the rest of the world is through an agent. Like this is the pasuk in Iyov. He gives the rain on the surface of the land, meaning Eretz Yisrael, and he sends forth water on the surface of what's beyond that, which is shliach. Additionally, a third thing, Eretz Yisrael drinks from the rainwater, and the rest of the world gets from what's squeezed out, meaning what remains in the clouds after Eretz Yisrael drank. That's what the rest of the world gets. Like it says in the pasuk, the same one we just mentioned. When it talks about Eretz Yisrael, it says the word rain. He gives forth rain onto Eretz Yisrael, etc. But the rest of the world is just mayim. It just gets what's squeezed out from the clouds. Additionally, another thing is Eretz Yisrael shows its chilo. Eretz Yisrael, it drinks first, meaning that's where the rain comes down first. And then the rest of the world gets it at the end. Like it says in the pasuk, that he gives rain on the surface of the earth, etc. And then he sends forth water on the rest of the world. Which mashal adam, this could be compared to a person who he's going ahead and he's creating cheese. So he takes the solids, he leaves the leftovers the way. That's the same thing that like. The main thing is the cheese, is the Eretz Yisrael, and the leftovers is the way, which although there's something there, but again it's not as significant as what was given first, what's done for Eretz Yisrael. So the Gemara goes back to what we discussed in the previous Daf. Rabbi Eliezer had said that the primary is the water, the low waters. We drink the ocean waters. So he said, it tastes sweet, and if that's where our rainwater is coming from, so how could it be? So he said, says they get sweetened in the clouds. So although it's really coming up from the oceans and the vapor goes up and becomes part of the clouds, and we get sweet water because it's like alchemy that's happening. It gets sweetened in the clouds. Says Gemara, where does he get this from? So it says the Gemara, there's a pasuk in Tehillim that says, Cheshchas mayim, the darkening water of Shchakim is the clouds of the sky. That's one pasuk. Now, except there's another pasuk in Shmuel Beis, it sounds almost the same exact. It says, Chashdas Mayim, the sieve of water, is Avishchakim, is the clouds of the sky. So it's the same words, literally, it's just there's one difference. One says with a chaf, and one says with a resh. So it says the Gemara like this, Shakal chaf, take the chaf that's in Chashchas, and put it with the resh, that says B'chashras, V'kari Bey, Chachshadas. Read it as if it's one word, which the hey and the ches are interchangeable. So it's like hachsharas, meaning it kashers it, it sweetens and it prepares it in the clouds. It says hachsharas mayim. What prepares, what sweetens, what is avish chakim? Is the clouds of the sky. That's how you see the source. It says according to Rabbi Shua, who he doesn't hold this whole idea of they getting sweetened in the clouds because he holds his Maimel Yoinim. Hashem has some type of a tent full of water, a pool up in Shemayim. So what does he do with these psukim of with a chaf, with a reish? He's not making hachsharas mayim. Says the Gemara, Savalok Yehad B'chiyasar of Dimi Amma. He'll like a different drasha. Amar Yibamanav, said in the West Eretz Yisrael, Noher Anoni. When the clouds are thin, like very sunny, it's clear. Zehidin Mohi. So then it has a small amount of water. Chashach Anoni, when the clouds are dark, Sagin Mohi. So then there's a lot of water. And that's what it says, chashchas. When it's dark, that's what it means, mayim. So from the fact that when it's chashach, when it's dark, that means there's a lot of water. So you learn that, but when it's nahar, when it's thin, then there's going to be a little bit, which Rashi says, this is actually Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, that he says that a hashara, this chashras is a terminology of like a seed, like pulling out from what's in between, like Yeshua has said on the previous Daf. But chashras, he says he needs for both. That, in other words, chashras and chashras basically is one is talking about when it's thin and one's talking about when it's dark. That's the two different psukim. It's not like the Rebbe said v'hachsharas, because he doesn't learn that it gets sweetened in the clouds. Says the Gemara, so based on what we said, Kaman Azlahad Tanya. According to whom does the following brisa go like? Maimel Yoinim, the upper waters, but Maimrahim Teluyim. They're hanging on nothing. They're just hanging in in the upper part of the sphere, that's like a pool that's hanging with God's word. And and the fruits are the rain waters. And the reason why they're saying it like this is because that's really the terminology of the pasuk. Like it says, Shenema, pasuk says in Tehillim, says the beginning of the pasuk says, Mashka Harami Al Yosef, which was a pasuk recorded in the previous Daf. Hashem waters the mountains from his upper stories. Meprimasecha, from the fruits of your handiwork, Tispa Ha'aretz, it satiates the land. And therefore, and the peiros, in other words, is the sweat of the water. Because actually the upper waters actually are not lacking at all. As the pasuk says in Tehillim Samachei, it says that Peleg Elikim, the pool of God, is Moli Maim, is filled with water. So Rashi says it's always filled with water. And the Karen, the principle always remains, and the Pedro Sehem, the derivatives are the rainwater, as Rashi brings from Bereshis Rabbah. So it's saying that the Maim Yam, they always stay there, and the Peiros, why we're calling the Peiros, like we always say every morning before after Bereshis Rabbah, Pedro Sehem, there's the derivative. And the derivative is the rainwater. It's like the sweat of the upper pool comes out the rain, and that's what rains down. So who's that like that holds such a thing? Says the Gemara, come on, that's Rabbi Yeshua. It's like Yeshua, who he holds that it comes from the upper waters. That's where the rain comes from. Now, Eliezer, he would tell you how as we had a similar answer on the top of the summit from the previous Daf, that he holds his Kotoma Maisa Bereshis. That's what was talking about, that in Maisa Bereshis it was created such a thing. But the regular rain doesn't come from the upper waters, actually comes from the ocean, comes from the lower waters. And Rabbi Shloimy Levi says, the whole entire world, drinks from the leftover waters of the Garden of Eden. Like it says in the Pasuk in Bereshis, the Nahar Yotzim Eden, and the river came out from Eden, etc. Which that's a sign for this idea that Gan Eden drinks from the rainwater first, and the rest of the world gets from Gan Eden. And Taanis Daf we learned in the Brisa that mitamtzes base kur, from the leftovers of a vessel that you use to use its water for an area of land of a base kur, so you could be shaisa, you could give to water from the leftovers for tarkiv. For the amount that you would have to plant a tarkiv. A tarkiv is the word trei kav, which is 3 kav, which is actually a half of a sa, because 6 kav is a sa, which that's 1/60th of a base kur, because a base kur is 30 sa. So that's the same idea, that the world, which is 1/60th of Gan Eden, as we're about to explain shortly, right now, so it's enough with the leftovers of the clouds that water the Gan Eden, because like you see that if you watered an area of a base kur for a 60th of that, which is a tarkiv, you can water that area from that leftovers, and the world is 1/60th of Gan Eden. So the leftovers of Gan Eden is what waters the world. As Tarmam, we learned in the Brisa that elaborates on this idea. Eretz Mitzrayim, Egypt, Habedalad meis parsa, dalad meis parsa. It was 400 by 400 parsais. It's only 1/60th of the size of Kush. Now, Kush, Kush is 1/60th the size of the world. The world's 1/60th of Began on Eden. The Garden of Eden is 1/60th of Eden itself. That's just the Garden of Eden. But Eden itself is 60 times larger. And the Eden Echem is Samach Gehenim. And Gan Eden is 1/60th the size of Gehenim because there's a lot more inhabitants and there's much more occupancy in Gehenim. 60 times that of Gan Eden, of Eden itself. Says the Gemara, comes out that the whole world is so small in regards to Gehenim, it's like a pot cover for that of Gehenim, because you have to imagine, like we said, the whole world is like 60th of the Garden of Eden, and 60th of Eden, and Eden is 60th of that of Gehenim. So again, the whole world is like nothing compared to the size of Gehenim. The Yeshem, some say actually Gehenim ain't lo shiur. It's not even that it's that big; it's unlimited. That's how big it is. But Yeshem, some say no, a little bit more on the positive side. Eden ain't lo shiur, that actually Eden doesn't have a measurement. And Amar Rabbi Shloimy says, "Ma'id Siv." What does it mean the pasuk? Going back to this idea about the rain. What does it mean the pasuk in Yirmiyah? Shechant, referring to bubble. You dwelled on Mayim Rabim, on an abundance of water. Rabbas Leitzaras, an abundance of storehouses. So it's explaining Mikram the bubble. Who caused the bubble shiur Yitzrasel bar, that its storehouses should be filled with produce. That's what the pasuk is saying. Because it dwells on an abundance of waters, so they're able to water their fields, because Bavel is deeper, lower lands than the rest of the world, and all the rains of the world come and drip down into Bavel. So that's why it has Rabbas Eitzaris. Similarly, Amar Rav says Atida Bavel, the wealth of Bavel is the chatzda, that they're able to harvest the grain, b'lei mitra, without any rain, again, because they don't need rain. Amar Abaye says Nekatina, and he says, and that's how we know that the harvest of Bavel, that it doesn't need rain, because Tevani. It's a swampy, a muddy place, below Yuvshani, and it's not dry. And as Taisus says, it's better to have a land that's wet than to be dry. I mean, you don't want it to be too wet or too dry, but if you have to choose between very wet or very dry, you'll choose wet, because then things will grow, but dry, one will not have. And that's why Bavel had this blessing, because it always had water. So now, the halach, the next Mishnah, continuing on this theme, which we started in the previous Mishnah, about when you end saying, we say Talamata, here we talk about when do you start saying, when do you start asking for rain, so which we're coming up to very shortly. The Mishnah says, Begimel b'macheshvan, which we already passed already, in the third of Macheshvan, that's when you start asking for rain. He says, B'shiva boy, a few days later, on the 7th of Macheshvan, which is Tezvav Yom HaChag, 15 days after Sukkot. Now, why are we waiting 15 days after Sukkot? So that the last ones of the Jewish people that they can get, in other words, before the rain starts coming down, L'nahar Pras to the Euphrates River, which is very far away, because people would come to Eretz Yisrael for Alila Regel, so that they could be able to get back home. We wait time to ask for rain. Now, Amar Rabbi Elazar says, halacha is that you start only on the 7th of Macheshvan. Now, talking in the Brisa, which is very important for us, in Chutz La'aretz, Yomי says that we don't ask on the 7th of Macheshvan. Why do we ask for rain? We didn't start asking yet. Saint Talamat Lavracha. Why? Yomי says because the Begoila, he says, in the diaspora, they don't ask for rain at Shishim Bitkufa until 60 days into the autumnal equinox. Now, the reason for this is because Bavel, which is where Klal Yisrael was when they made the Gemara, was a very low place, as we said previously on this Daf. So they didn't need so much rain. So only 60 days into the autumnal equinox, which again is December 4th and December 5th, that's when we start asking for rain. And I'm going to put in the Bachiyah Mashmoy, says halacha is kechananya. And that is halacha, we don't start at the same time as in Eretz Yisrael. We halacha is echananya. Now says the Ma'im, is that really so? But Boboimni, Mishmul, they had asked from Shmuel, Me'imas Madkarin and the Saint Talamata. When you start mentioning the Saint Talamata, Amalu, he said, Mechime'ayil Tzivi Lebe, when they start gathering the wood into the storehouse of Tavus, if that was his name, Rishba, who he's the bird hunter, when they start putting the wood into the storehouses for the purposes of the winter months, because that's what they used to do, because they knew that it's going to rain from now on. So they weren't able to chop wood anymore from the forest. So when they start putting the wood in, that's when you start davening for the rain. So which one is it? What's the contradiction? Maybe it's both the same. Maybe 60 days into the ordinary equinox is when they would put wood into his storehouse. So it's not a contradiction. Now, brother, the following question. Yom Shishim, day 60, is it Lefnei Shishim? Is it like before the 60 days, meaning, and you don't mention the same Talmud yet? Or Kala'achar Shishim, or maybe it's like after 60 days, and you are going to mention, meaning the 60th day itself, what's the halacha? So it's actually machlekes. Tashma will learn, come in here, where Rav says Yom Shishim Kala'achar Shishim, he says, day 60 is like after 60, which you start already on the 60th day. Shmuel says, Yom Shishim Kalefnei Shishim. No, it's like before the 60 days. And if you want the mnemonic to remember which one said what, is Eloi Boyumaya. The ones on the top, they need water. What does that mean to say? The ones on the mountains need more water because the rainwater rolls down and goes down to the bottom. The ones on the bottom, they don't need water because all the water gathers from the mountains into the valleys. So here also says Rashi, Rav was from Eretz Yisrael. As Gemara says in general, like we find Gittin Davav, when Rav came to Babel, and so on and so forth. So Rav was from Babel, from Eretz Yisrael. And Eretz Yisrael is the highest of all the lands. It's a mountainous region. That's why Rav, he's saying Kala'achar Shishim, which is that you have to mention already on day 60, because he's from Eretz Yisrael, which the higher ones, the mountain regions, need the rain. Whereas Babel was in the diaspora and deep down lands, so since they don't need rain, which is where Shmuel was from, therefore he was saying that you don't ask for rain until after the 60th day. But again, that's why in Babel they only start 60 days after Tekuvas Tishrei. But says Rashi, that's also Aminig. Why? We live in the United States, we live in England, we live in all the places in the world. Why are we specifically doing 60 days after? Is because all our Minhagim are Ben Hagi B'nei Babel. That's where our Gemara is from, Talmud Babel. So since in Babel they didn't need, because like we said before, it was very swampy and wet lands, so they didn't need up until 60 days after Tekufas Tishrei. So therefore we also don't ask, since we also have in the halachas of the Goyla, of the diaspora, we only daven for rain at that point also. Now look at the next Mishnah, which continues this theme about asking for, when we start davening with Saint Talamater, which we had on the previous Daf, that there's 3 reviyos in the Yaira, in the early rains, and we said that each one has significance. We said the first one is when we start asking Saint Talamater, the middle one we had a bunch of pshatim why, and the last one was, okay, so kitnish, medav shein fasting. So that's what this Mishnah discusses, that higi yudzayin b'macheshen. So okay, those are the 3 reviyos, it depends on who the Tana is, but we already reached the 70th Macheshen. We're ready with davening with Saint Talmud ready for a bunch of days. And the rain doesn't come down. Okay, so then, okay, the individuals, which we can explain who they are, they started fasting a series of 3 fasts. Now, these fasts were not so stringent. They could eat and drink even when it's already nighttime, meaning the night before the fast. They're allowed to do work, and bathe themselves, and anoint themselves, and wearing shoes, and marital intimacy, which you obviously recognize these things. These are the things that we don't do on Tisha B'Av, but these are the things that are not prohibited for them on these first 3 fasts. Now, that's starting the 17th of Macheshvan. That's already the 30th Shchedish Kislev, and it didn't rain yet. So Bezdin goes in Shalosh Taanis Daf, but now the Bezdin would decree already 3 public fasts that was on the tzibur. But however, again, it wasn't so stringent yet either. They could eat and drink even though it's already nighttime, meaning the idea is that they don't have to stop eating from during daytime like we have in Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av, that you can't eat when it's already nighttime. No, you're allowed to eat at nighttime. They're allowed to do work, allowed to bathe themselves, wearing shoes, marital intimacy. The only thing is they're not doing is they're not eating during the daytime. Now says the Gemara, Man Yechidim. When you said that from the 17th of Macheshvan, the tzibur is not fasting yet, but you said there are Yechidim that they fast 3 fasts. Who are these individuals? He says Rabbanan. It's the Rabbanan. It's the rabbis. They take it upon themselves to fast. Another teaching from Amar Avuna, he says Yechidim, these individuals, Mesana Sholosh Tainis, they have 3 fasts, like we said in the Mishnah. Bahab, Sheni v'chamish v'sheni. That Bahab is Beis and Hey and Beis, which is Monday, Thursday, and Monday. That's the series of fasts that they do. It says the Gemara, my Kamash Malan. What is Rav Huna teaching us when he's telling us it's Monday, Thursday, and Monday? Tanina. We learned this in the Mishnah later on in the parak that says Vav Beis. It says in Goizim Taanis Daf, you don't decree a fast on the public initially starting on a Thursday. Meaning we do it on those days, Monday, Thursday, because those are auspicious days. But you're not going to start on a Thursday first. Why? That it shouldn't make a skyrocket for the prices of goods, because if you're going to start a fast on a Thursday, so everyone's going to buy on Thursday night matzah tainis, 2 big meals. One for the matzah tainis, the wife makes a whole seder, and the one for Shabbos, because it's already Thursday night. Once I'm already in the store, now the seller thinks, great, must be some famine in the world because everyone's like pulling in, cars are pulling in, they're buying. He figures, okay, because there must be something that's going on, and he's up the prices. So we don't do it on the first times on Thursday. Rather, the first 3 fasts are Sheni Chamish B'Sheni, are Monday, Thursday, Monday. So ready for Monday, he knows already that there's some type of fast going on. So what's Rav Huna teaching us? The Mishnah. Says the Gemara, yeah, but what would you say on the Milit Tzibur? That Mishnah is only telling us regarding a public fast. So public fast, everyone's fasting, everyone's going to come Thursday night, that's going to be crazy. Abu Yachid, but regarding the Yechidim, the 3 fasts that the individuals are doing before the Tzibur Loi, then I would say you don't have to start on a Monday because it's not going to be such an increase. You have some El Tehid, the Rabbunan, they come in, they buy, the Rebbetzin comes on Thursday night, so that wouldn't require you, that's not part of the 13 public fast. So Kamash, that's the Chiddush Rabbunan, that no, even that, we're going to say that should start on a Monday and shouldn't start on a Thursday. And Tanabach is on the Braisa, when the individual started fasting, it says on Monday, Thursday, and on Monday do 8. Additionally, the Braisa continues, it says Mafsikin B'Rosh Chodashim. Another related halacha is that if, let's say, Rosh Chodesh falls out on a Monday or a Thursday after they started their series of fasts, and it comes out on a Rosh Chodesh, which we don't fast on Rosh Chodesh, so they stop their taanis and they don't fast on that Rosh Chodesh, as continue to the days, and also Ubiyam Tev Maksum B'Megillas Taanis. We know there's a scroll that talks about the days, and these are minor fasts, you're not supposed to fast. If it falls out in one of those days, then we're not going to fast because of the Megillas Taanis and because of Rosh Chodesh. Now, continuing this theme about who are the Yechidim, so someone will learn the Braisa. Al Yema Adam Talmud on it. A person shouldn't say, look, I'm just a student. I'm not fit to be from the Yechidim, the Yechidei school, from the individuals. I'm not fit to start fasting now with the grace of Rabbunan. A person shouldn't say that. All Talmudic scholars are considered individuals, and you could go ahead and you could fast with the Rabbanan. Now, says the Braisa, Ezel Yachid Be'ezel Talmud. So who really is the Yachid, and who's the Talmud who he could say like he's like a Yachid? So these are 2 different individuals. Yachid, the Yechidim, the individuals, are kosher role of Nisei Panis Latzim. He's fit to be appointed to be a leader on the Jewish people. A Talmud, a student, is still a great person, but it's not a Yachid. It's kosher sheilan Nisei Dvar Halacha B'Lemudoi. If you ask him the halacha of what he's learning, he says, Mesechta de Kala, which my Gemara decided to bring that someone to say Mesechta de Kala means Kala was always the drushes that they would make from the halachas of the Yom Tiv. They would make, and it was called Yomei de Kala. But really, they bring that from the Ritva and others that it's appropriate that, no, the interpretation of Mesechta de Kala is actually a certain Braisa. We call it Mesechta de Kala, we have it printed. That the reason why I call Mesechta Kala because the Braisa starts Kala b'le bracha asul l'bala kanida. That a Kala without the brachas, without the Shem brachas, is forbidden to her husband like a nida. That's what's referring to Afilah Mesechta de Kala. Which elsewhere the Rishonim discuss, is that a chiddush or is that a chumrah or leniency? Is that considered like that's all he knows, or he knows even over that? But that's what a Talmud is someone that he knows what you're going to ask him. The Yachid is fit to be appointed leader. That's what's saying for the halacha fasting. A Talmud shouldn't say, I'm just a Talmud. No, he should also treat himself like a Yachid and fast. Now, however, we did learn in the Braisa that says, Loi kolorei lasas asma Yachid. No, it's not true. Not anyone who wants to make himself into a Yachid regarding a fasting, Isa, he can make himself. Because to the contrary, he looks like he's arrogant. And the Mishnah teaches in Avos Perek Gimel that If people are pleasant with you, that's a good thing. But if not, the mind's the bishoy, like Grace Tzaddik, you're not from the Yechidim, can't just make yourself into the Yechidim to fast. Talmud Oisa, which there's two interpretations in Rashi, but this means, like we said before, that all students are fit to go ahead and be a Yachid, and they're not considered arrogant. So though not everyone can make himself into a Yachid, a Talmud Chacham could make himself like a Yachid. That's the Rebbe Meir. Yesemer, he says, no, Oisa. Every person can make himself into a Yachid, even if he's not a Talmud. He can make himself like a Yachid to fast. And he's recalled for the good. It's not praise for him. He doesn't get any grace titles over here. He's painting himself and not arrogant. He's going to fast. So therefore that shouldn't be a problem. Rashi makes another interpretation that, no, actually what it means to say, not everyone who wants to make himself a Yachid can make himself, but a Talmud could, means, in other words, and not anyone who wants to make himself also a Talmud, to conduct himself like as if he's a Talmud Chacham, with the clothing that a Talmud Chacham wears, how he conducts his affairs with his bed, and to wear the kerchief, which a Talmud Chacham used to wear, all other things, could he do? No, that also you can't do. Because whoever wants to take the name of a Talmud Chacham can't necessarily take it. So when he says Talmud, it's actually a continuation. No, and it's also, and not Talmud Oisa. That's what Rebbe Meir held. And B'yisi was going on the Reisha and saying that regarding making yourself a Yachid, even that you could make yourself, but actually only that. And it's logical like that interpretation as Rashi, because from the fact that we're going to quote now Shimon Leo that says Davar Shel Shevach you can't do, but Tsar you could do. Obviously we're talking about something of Shevach. Or what are we talking about that of Shevach is because you're making yourself into something greater than what you are, which is acting like a Talmud Chacham. Tani Yuchel, another brayso that shows this is that everyone who wants to make himself like a Yachid can make himself, meaning to say to conduct his affairs like a good Rebbe. That not necessarily. Again, Talmud Oisa, depending on what that means. Does that mean and you cannot make yourself a Talmud Chacham, or does it mean but a Talmud Chacham can make himself like a Yachid? But that's the Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg. Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg says, when we say this, that you cannot conduct yourself like a Yachid, like a Rebbe, is b'davar shel shalach, by something of praiseworthiness. But something regarding pain, like you want to be like a Yachid to fast, that also you could do it in B'zachot, and you're remembered for the good. Is not like a praise he's getting. He's painting himself for the Jewish people that it should rain. That's not a problem. That's something that you could do. And again, that's why it sounds like the second interpretation of Rashi, because we see that he's saying, well, that's only b'tav shel shalach, but no one's talking about shel shalach according to the first interpretation. Rashi talking about tzar. No, it's because you want to be like a Talmud Chacham, you want to wear their clothing, you want to conduct yourself like a Talmud Chacham. So therefore, it would sound like that interpretation. Continue on other halachas regarding fasting. So Misha Misana al Tzar. Let's say someone was fasting regarding a difficulty, and the difficulty passed, or or he was dining for a sick person who was healed, which actually Rashi says something would be if the sick person died. It wouldn't necessarily be that he was healed. It's just that the tzara passed. So Hariz Misana Mashal. The person should still continue to fast and complete the fast. Because like Rashi says, if not, you make it look like as if you're stipulating with your Creator that if the tzara passes, I'm not going to fast. And if not, then I will fast. So it's not like that. A person should complete his fast no matter what happens. And you have to fulfill your neder. Now, let's say someone goes from a place where they're not fasting, and he goes to a place where they are fasting. He should fast with them. And same thing is the other way too. If he goes from let's say he goes from a place that was fasting to a place that's not fasting, either way, he should complete his fast, because all the fast that the city where he came from accepted, we're going to give him the stringency to the place where he left and the place that he goes to. As Tosha says, we don't care if he plans on going back or doesn't plan on going back. Since he accepted the Taanis already in the place that he came from, he has to finish the fast. Now let's say shachach v'achal v'shasal. Let's say he forgot and he ate and he drank after the fact on the Taanis. So al yisrael b'fnei hatzibur. He shouldn't show himself in front of the public because he looks like a groom amongst the mourners, where everyone's schluffing this and that. And he's walking in, hello, how are you? And everyone's gonna be jealous of him. So that you shouldn't go ahead and show yourself under the tzibur. And also, he he also shouldn't conduct himself with delicacies. He shouldn't say, okay, look, I already ate, so I'm going to eat a lot. I'm going to pull out the ice cream, and then why not? No, you don't do that. Like to the Pasuk in Bereshis, you should not show yourself in front of the tzibur. Is Vayim Yaakov Levanav. These parashas, Yaakov says to his sons, Lama Tisro. What does that mean? So Amalam Yaakov Levanav, Yaakov said to his sons, Al Tiru Atzmacham. Tisro is like, don't make yourself be seen. Al Tiru Atzmacham Kshat Misvein. Don't show yourselves as if you are satisfied that you have a lot of wheat. And they didn't go down to Mitzrayim only so that they shouldn't show themselves as if they have, like b'fnei Esav, not in front of the sons of Esav, who they were in pain and they were hungry. And b'fnei Yishmael, it shouldn't be like in front of the Yishmael, so they shouldn't be jealous of you. So our Gemara is telling us that Yaakov really sent down the Shvatim to Mitzrayim not because they needed food, but you shouldn't appear like a chassan, like bein ve'elam, like Rashi says, like as if you have, and it's me jealous of you. So you also go down to Mitzrayim, so you should look like as if you also don't have. Also, these psukim that it says over there when they were coming back from Yosef. So Yosef said to them, "Al tirgizu baderech." So regiz means like a fury. Like what does that mean? Al tirgizu baderech. Don't have regiz on the road. So Rabbi Shloimy says, "Amalam Yosef la'echal." So Yosef said to his brothers, "Al tisasku v'dvar halacha." Don't engage in halachic discussion. Shemetirgizu aleichem haderech. Maybe you're going to get lost. The road is like going to get angry at you, and you're going to get lost. And you missed the ways already 3 times already. You got in that discussion. You keep on missing the exit. Don't get engaged in the halacha. Now, Taisa actually brings down the medrash that actually says the opposite. Al tafsikum in halacha. Don't stop learning so that it should protect you. Because if not, there's rages. You all know we say tefillah there. There's danger on the road. But our Gemara says that no, don't engage in learning because then you might get lost. Says Yomei, is that really so? You're not supposed to learn as you're traveling? But V'amr, a little bit of Berachia says, we have 2 Talmudic scholars that are traveling on the road. They ain't been named Divrei Torah, and I have between them words of Torah routinely served, they're fit to be burned. Where do we know this? Coming to the Pasuk Melachim Beis. It says, V'hi heima holchem, that they, Elio and Elisha, the student, they were going, Halach v'daber, they were going, they were talking. V'ini rechav eish, and behold, there was a fiery chariot. V'susayesh, and the horses of fire. They freed dimension and separated between the 2 of them. So it explains the Gemara. Time of Dibur, that the reason is because they were speaking, and that's why the Torah tells us this, to let us know that if they weren't going and in the depths of halacha, talking and learning, they wouldn't have been saved. Because halakha dibur are in this earth. But if not for the words of Torah, they would have been fit to be burned. Which actually Taisus brings that actually it brings a medrash that they actually were speaking to our B'Telem. They were shmuzing. And therefore they were fit to be burned. But be that as it may, we see that you're supposed to learn as you're traveling. So how could Yosef tell them don't handle learning as you're traveling? It's more like kasha, not what type of learning. If you're just learning, that you need to do on the road. But to be ma'ayin, handle bircha shmul as you're traveling, no, that's not a great idea because you're going to get lost. But to handle, to shmuz and learning, so there's a chiluk between handling and learning and shmuz and learning. That is what it is, not handling learning. Or another interpretation of what did Yosef mean, the Mesnita Tanur in the Brisa, that what did he mean, al tirgizu baderech, that he told him that. That means something else. He said, al tafsiu, because regiz means anger. So it means al tafsiu p'sigasa. Don't take large steps, that you shouldn't harm yourself when you're taking large steps. And that's what he meant when he said al tirgizu baderech, but meaning that the road has a lot of fury. So one of them is don't take large steps. Another one is v'chnisu chama le'ir. What does that mean? That when you're going and to spend the night going into the motel, so you go into the city when the sun is still shining. Chnisu chama, bring the sun into the city. That's what he's telling him about tigzu b'derech, that don't get the fury of the road because you have to make sure you're careful. One of them is don't take large steps. Another one is come into the city when it's still sun, as the Gemara explains. Out of seed gasa, don't make large steps, because the master said, the seed gasa, large steps, it takes away 1/500th of a person's vision if you take very large steps. Which Taisa says, if that would be the case, then if someone took 500 large steps, he would be blind. Because it takes 1/500th of a person's vision. So it says Taisa, he says no. It means 1/500th of what's left. As we find similar Gemara Ksubis, that Pastor Yosef the Rebbe, that a tenth, the next door takes a tenth of that, a tenth of that, a tenth of that. So here it says it's 1/500 of that. But Tosfos says that's difficult because why should the next step be any less harmful than the first step? So Tosfos says two pshatim. Either that it's really only the first large step that takes it, because mekama elach given the dash. A lot of times when you do something harmful, once you did it already, you did it already. It's only the first time that's harmful. So that's 1/500. But when you continue to walk with large steps, then it's not going to be harmful. Or so he says no, it's actually true. The first one is kalas chalas kashas, which is interesting in that context. Tosfos says every beginning is we all say it in like when we hear Musa Shmuz naschal zazman naschal kashas. Tosfos says it in the context of like whatever's the beginning is more harmful. So that first puff, that first click, whatever it is, that first large step, that's the most difficult, that's the most harmful. And after that, it's not as harmful on the person, so it becomes only 1/500 of that. So it could be that even though you take it to see gas, it takes 1/500, you're not going to become blind if you take 500 of these large steps. But be that as it may, he says don't take these large steps. And also bring the sun into the city, meaning it's coming to the city when it's still daytime. It says, a person should always go out with kitayv. What does it mean? You should go out with kitayv. You should wait till it becomes light. Like it says in the Pasuk Bereshis, you saw the light that it's good, so go out when it's kitayv. And you should come back into the city when it's kitayv, meaning in the evening, come to this town when it's still sunny outside, when there's no armed bandits, there's no harmful elements out there, and also that you shouldn't fall into a pit or into some type of crack or valley and pothole in the city, and or they shouldn't go ahead and start spreading, try to capture you because they're going to say you're a spy or a robber or whatever it is. Be that as it may, during the daytime it's more safe. It's not like it says the Pasuk in Bereshis. There's a boikor, the morning was light, and the men were sent. So from here we see that when you're leaving, you should go with kitayv, and therefore the same wouldn't be mistaber, that when you're coming back into the city, you should also be with kitayv, it should be when it's sun. Continue on this theme about traveling. So maybe Huda Amr Chia says, if someone is traveling on the road, you shouldn't eat more than that you would eat in a famine year, which the Gemara tells us on the next daf that a person has to starve himself a little bit in a famine year. So however much you would eat in a famine year, that's how much you should eat when you're traveling. My time, what's the reason why when you're traveling should you eat light? So here in Babel they translate because of your intestines, meaning that a person's intestines should not get all queasy because of the abundance of eating. Because as you're traveling, we know that motion always affects people. Get motion sickness. So because of that, because of your intestines, some say that because that your stomachs are going to pour one from the other like a mayim, like a spring. So the question is mayana from the word of the mayim from the intestines, or like a mayim, like a spring. But either as it may, it's hard on your digestive system. So when you're traveling, don't eat so much. But in the West they said a different reason, because of food. Simply you might not have food later on. You're traveling. So don't eat so much. Eat the bare minimum, like an airplane meal. It's like what you get over there. That's how much you eat. So what's the difference between these two interpretations? Is it because of your digestive system, or because of simply if you'll have enough food? So you can find a difference between them as you continue to have your alf and alf is the yasa ba'arba, if you're traveling on a boat. So there is a concern about you might not have enough food, but there's not the concern about of your digestive system. You're not going anywhere, you're not traveling anywhere. You're on that yacht, you're on that whatever ship you're on. That wouldn't have the concern. That would be one after me. No, another difference is the kazal me'avn al-avna. If a person is going from town to town, from village to village, and that's where he's staying overnight, where he's going to get food, they have a continental breakfast, no concern about food, but there is concern about the traveling, how it might affect his stomach, and therefore a person even then should not eat so much as he's traveling. I mean, Gemara brings a story there, a papa called Parsa, every Parsa that he would travel, he ate a whole loaf of bread. Why? Why is he eating so much as he's traveling? Because Ksaver, he held Papa that the rabbi said not to eat so much is Mishum Mayan, is because of digestive reasons. Now he wasn't afraid of his stomach, because Rashi tells us he was a heavy-set individual, and he couldn't carry that weight and eat that food. Or another interpretation Rashi says is that he had a very wide stomach, as the Gemara says about Metzia, the Pedal Me'alf, where it talks about the limbs and the organs of every man according to his might, and therefore he was able to eat a lot, and it wouldn't be harmful for him. So for him, a loaf of bread every parcel was normal, because the whole idea is about how it's going to affect him. For him, that's not going to affect him, and therefore he didn't need to starve himself, and therefore he ate a loaf of bread every single parcel. Thank you anytime.